Good morning, everyone. This is Paul Cash speaking. Hopefully most people have arrived by now. There's still a couple of people logging on. If there are any issues during the webinars we go through, if you could just type a question in the box, we can obviously unmute people if we need to. The idea this morning was to take about 40 minutes or so just to run through where we've got to with Mirror42 and the acquisition by ServiceNow, what that means to us as customers of ServiceNow. I believe that most of the people registered for the webinar are already ServiceNow customers. What it means for us as a ServiceNow customer, what it means for you as a ServiceNow customer, and some of the things that we can look at in the future. So as an agenda, I just wanted to do some introductions, do some background on Mirror42 and ServiceNow, and then do a brief demonstration at a fairly high level of some of the functionality and some of the things that we have worked with in the past, and then open up at the end to any questions that people have. We may not be able to answer all of the questions. Clearly, the integration with ServiceNow and so on is still something which is being worked on, but we will try and tackle as many things as we can as we go through it. So if you have any questions in the meantime, please type them into the question box and we'll try and answer them at the end. So just as introductions, my name is Paul Cash. I'm the Managing Director of Partners in IT. We have been working with ServiceNow and Mirror42 for a long time. I'm joined by John Trainer. John is one of our senior consultants and has been working with Mirror42 for a number of years and a number of different customers, and we'll come to some of those things. As a business, Partners in IT and some of our customers on the webinar, and some people we haven't spoken to before on the webinar. As a business, we work with a number of technology providers working around primarily service management and providing businesses with ITSM maturity improvements, either through the implementation of dashboards, processes, reporting, the tools that underpin those and align those, which allows us to bring into the service management capability of any business the enhancement requests, project deliveries, service requests, and so on, that we can then help businesses deliver greater cost-effective service delivery to the business. Just some background on ServiceNow Mirror42. We've worked with ServiceNow for about 4 years, and as of the 1st of July of this year, ServiceNow bought Mirror42 as an entire business and are bringing that into the overall ServiceNow stable, as it were, of applications. The reason they did that, I think, is because, first of all, Mirror42 was seen to be a very similar type of business to ServiceNow in terms of the ease of use and ease of configuration of the applications and the way it works, but also provided a lot of complementary analytics to the way that ServiceNow works. And I'll use a diagram later on that just explains where the line is really between the ServiceNow reporting and the Mirror42 reporting, which is now called performance analytics. And the little diagram there really does show the thinking behind that, which is that in terms of reporting and analytics, those are two different things, where reporting is providing you with information, and the information is then translated into insight and decision-making information that you can use within the analytics platform. So we started working with Mirror42 a long time ago, back in 2005 when the business was first started. We identified the way they worked and the way they did things as something which was a significant contribution to the way that people run service management and the way they run performance in their business. And what we've done over the last 3 or 4 years is build up a number of specific KPIs and best practice KPIs that we think are relevant under some branding that we've called Perform IT, which is clearly now absorbed into ServiceNow, and invested a lot of time and effort into building out some expertise in Mirror42. And we have a number of customers that we've worked with, both working with ServiceNow and working with platforms which are not ServiceNow, some of which are HP, CA, and other platforms across the industry. The plans from ServiceNow that we'll talk about, we can only talk about a small amount of it because that's all that's been released to us. These are not commitments. Clearly ServiceNow is now a public company. They have to account to the market and to the industry in a very cautious manner. So as far as we are aware, ServiceNow are doing a full integration of Mirror42 into what is at the moment codenamed the Eureka release. So ServiceNow named their releases after major cities. The Dublin release is released in Q4 2013, and there's already some previews of the functionality which is going into there, and that's been talked about for some time. Codename Eureka is probably the end of Q1 in 2014, but we would at the moment say at some point in H1. There's no commitment around a date or what goes into that, but as far as we know, ServiceNow are completely rebuilding Mirror42 functionality into the native ServiceNow platform, and I'll explain in a second roughly how that architecture will change. So today, and what we'll show you, is the current ServiceNow and Mirror42 architecture. So if we look at the ServiceNow interface on the left-hand side, everyone will be familiar with the application list and the forms that appear to the right of the application list and the way you can manipulate those. What we'll show you today is Mirror42 working in that interface, but that's actually Mirror42 working natively and running in Amazon EC2 environment, which is where Mirror42 has been built, and providing that interface into the ServiceNow interface via iframes interface. Mirror42 in its own way is collecting data from the ServiceNow database via data collectors and providing data extract and transformation of that data into the separate Mirror42 database and using additional data collectors, if required, to collect data from other data sources. So what we can do with Mirror42 is aggregate data from different places and bring those into the same place, but generally people are more interested in everything that's coming out of the ServiceNow database. The change in that architecture is that clearly, and this is just simplifying things enormously, Mirror42 will be rebuilt within the ServiceNow data centers, within the ServiceNow architecture, and using the ServiceNow database. So everything will become native, everything will become integrated, but look and feel, as far as we can tell, exactly the same and work in the same way. What we'll then have is APIs for external data sources, and those external data sources, when the data is extracted, will be loaded into a custom table within the ServiceNow database and used within the performance analytics interface. What that means for people who are using data from external sources is that the most efficient way of doing that will be to bring it straight into that custom table within ServiceNow and bypass any third-party databases that you may use. There's a lot more detail required around how that's going to work and what it's going to do, but clearly it's a good step within the Eureka release to bring that all together into a very native platform. And you'll see as we go through the demonstration that today it looks like it is native. It looks like it's very integrated, but actually Mirror42 is working in the Amazon EC2 environment, and you'll be able to see how that works together. In terms of the commercial environment, at the moment the costings for the performance analytics system is that it will be charged as an additional cost to the overall ServiceNow subscription of about £16 per user per month. That's $25, which we translate into our local currency at about £16 to £17 per month, depending on the number of process users that you have. And that will then give you full access to all the Mirror42 functionality and development capabilities. We've used this slide before. It's a quote from a customer that's been using Mirror42 against ServiceNow for some time, and they saw a dramatic decline in instance in the first few months of using Mirror42 because you had the visibility of the data on a day-to-day basis, being able to look at trends and targets, and they use that to manage the behavior of people and manage the behavior of the overall service management function to drive down the number of open incidents, and drove significant improvements in the way they were doing things. And as I said before, just to explain where performance analytics and operational reporting fits, this is a diagram that we've used for probably 3 or 4 years now, really explaining to people the differences between native reporting in ServiceNow and what you get out of Mirror42, now called performance analytics, where in ServiceNow clearly the reporting is very easy to use, very structured, but it has limitations around giving you visibility and insight into the underlying data, the trends, and also forecasting, looking at how you're going to forecast resource requirements, forecast how certain trends are going to affect the rest of the business. So what we're going to do, I think best is to have a look at the technology. I'll hand over to John, who will run through a high-level demonstration of Mirror42. The system that we're going to use is actually a public demonstration system that ServiceNow published, so anyone is able to go into this system and have a look around afterwards. And if you want me to send you the URL for the location of the actual demo system, we're happy to do that. I think it's a public one that we can share.
Yep.
And you're perfectly welcome to log in yourself, pretend that you're Fred Luddy, just in the way that John's about to do, and have a look around at the system and see how that works for you. So I'll just hand over to John, and he'll start up ServiceNow in a browser and show you how that works.
Thank you, Paul. So as Paul said, I'm John Trainer, Senior Consultant at Partners in IT, and I've been working with Mirror42 for a number of years at a number of customers over that time. So what we're going to look at is the rebranded Mirror42 now within ServiceNow, and as we can see here, we're in a typical ServiceNow system with a bunch of incidents, changes, etc. in here. But what we'll notice is we've got a performance analytics branding at the top and an application for performance analytics available to us from the menu. This gives us options for scorecards, dashboards, and messages. Scorecards is where we actually define the indicators and the KPIs used in the system. I'm not going to really focus on that too much, as all of those indicators feed into the dashboards. So if I click onto the dashboards, we're immediately presented with the performance analytics main system. So just to briefly explain the screen layout here, we have a pull-down menu which shows us the dashboards that are available. I'm going to go over 2 or 3 of these as part of this demonstration. I'm currently looking at a dashboard named Business Value. So on Business Value, we have 5 tabs available that give us the performance figures for those main KPIs pertaining to business value. So on the availability, what we can see, we've got things like new emergency changes, percentage of open overdue changes, mean time to repair, open incidents. So it's the things that's happening in terms of where we are with the business. We have a couple of different graphs or portlets, as they're known, within the dashboard. Here we have a last score, which gives us literally the last score that was collected for emergency changes. The previous score, bear in mind this is a demonstration system, so these aren't the current dates. And we have the trend of if it's an upwards or a downwards spiral, if that's a good thing, so yes, emergency changes is going down from yesterday, so that's a good thing. Whereas open and overdue incidents is actually on the up, so that's not so good. Beneath the line here, we've got the last year's worth of scores in a small graph that actually gives you the points as well. I was going to look at a number of open incidents. So here, again, it's a last score chart, and we've got the number of open incidents as of today. Assuming today is March 15th, and if we click on that, this opens the main chart for open incidents. Now, What we're seeing here is say the new window with some new options. So we've got the chart options on the first tab. So this gives us the type of chart, and it opens up as a default line chart. We can change that to one of the other types available, should we require. And the range is 3 months to date. Now again, we can look at that over a time period, so for the last year, for example, and then that's giving us a very detailed daily score value for open incidents. Now, on the top here, we've also got aggregations available. So the main indicator is a daily collection. Defined here, we have some different aggregations on this. So we could look at, well, what's the total average look like for the previous weeks? That will provide us with a little bit of smoothing there. Let's just change that to a spine to make that look a little bit better. And also, for example, total average for the previous months. So now we can see what generally this is looking like over the past year for open incidents. We can apply a trend line over that to see what this is looking like over the last year. It's a downward trend, so that's good. Although if we would now look at the last month, perhaps I'll just change that back to the main indicator, and we can see we've actually it's an upward trend. So long term it's looking good, but we've got maybe a bit of a spike going on in the last month or so. So that's what we call the base indicator of open incidents. On the next tab we can have breakdowns of open incidents, and the breakdowns available for this, and these are entirely configurable. The ones we have associated with this particular one are assignment group, business service, incident state, and priority. So here we can see the breakdown of open incidents by, for example, product delivery manager. Now if I click on product delivery manager, now that gives us open incidents for assignment group product delivery manager, and the same tool is available to us to look at those performance statistics. Okay, let me click back on the main indicator again. So briefly explained, we've got the different types of charts available. We'll also notice we have a table where we've got the raw values. So these are the daily values that are pulled in each night, and if we so wish we can download that into CSV format to manipulate in Excel if that's a requirement. We can also save these as a PDF, so that will, whatever graph you've chosen, and ranges and aggregations, you can then save that as a PDF and distribute that way if required. Okay, so if we click on details, that's going to give us more of a description of what this particular indication is about, and some highlighting the scores for that. The direction, is it a downwards or an upwards trend, and how often we collect that. With messages, so these can be system generated. So we've got some threshold checks here. So you can set the threshold for open incidents, as we have here. That's more than 250. We've breached 250, so a message goes out onto the system. This is also emailed to anyone who's subscribed to open incidents, and then recorded within this tab. For yourself, if you're responsible for open incidents, then you can just type in some details here, which will also be posted. So we get a Twitter-like feed going on here. So your username would come up here, John Trainer. Here's the message, when it was, and you can. Anyone else who's got access to open incidents can do some responses on that using email as well. Okay, so finally we've got a Smart Links tab associated with this, and this is where we can look at what those open incidents are within ServiceNow. So we've opened up a new tab within the browser, and we can look at more detail of what those open incidents are. So clearly with 360 we don't want to be looking at this, but if it was P1 breached, for example, then you might want to know what those particular incidents are. That's opened up in a new tab, so we'll click back, and that's the look of the availability dashboard. So looking at the following tabs, we've got customer related, percentage of incidents closed in time by first assigned group. So we're looking at, well, what does this mean to the customer base? How are we performing? Okay, mean time to repair is running at 12.5 days on an average, and that is a upward trend, which is bad. So clearly from 4.5 days the previous collection period. Workload, again, we've got some high level, what's happening today, last scores, what's my workload look like when I come in the morning. I'll look at this and say, okay, this is what it looks like to the business today. Okay, so process quality, we're introducing a couple of gauges now. So these are some of our key performance indicators based around incidents closed and open incidents not worked on in the last 30 days. So to explain the colour scheme, obviously green is good. Green, we're getting close to the target line. The target line is 10. Once we've gone over that, we're into the amber and into the reds. So this is looking like it's an upward trend, and then this is your score, 7.7%. Looking at that over time, well, let's have a look at what that looks like over the last year and run a trend line over that. So we can clearly say over the last year we've got some problems in the last couple of months. So moving on to another dashboard available to us. This is a CIO dashboard, so an executive dashboard. This covers obviously the ITSM processes that we might be interested in at a high level. So how does service management look like today? So we have a scorecard now where we're looking at incident process, problem, request and change, and how those are performing. The colour gives you an idea as well. So the index score is based upon the underlying KPIs that report into the incident process. I'll explain a little bit more on that in a minute. But we're below target at the moment, hence the score is actually coloured red. So we know we have a problem there, and that's also highlighted with the red dot. So looking at that, again, drill into it. We've got a chart that shows the how incident management process has been performing over time. And this is the amount of data that we currently have. So clicking on the max will show we've been collecting incident process performance measurements since October 2012, and this is what it looks like. A slight upward trend there. So with the detail screen, again, we've got a description, and the description can be modified to suit each environment. And I wouldn't worry too much about this formula, but this is basically showing us the key performance indicators associated with incident process and how the overall score is calculated, and any messages that might be pertaining to the process. So moving along, the CIO may be interested in a little bit more detail. Again, it's high level, but now we're showing what those key indicators are for incident management process. And clearly we can see two, potentially three indicators that are the problem areas, and we might want to put some resource into those areas to get them sorted out. And similarly, same kind of design for problem, request, and change management. So what does this mean to staffing levels? The CIO might be questioning. Okay, so we've got how many people are in our staff. What does that look like? Excuse me, just going back to the CIO dashboard. So as an example, we'll now look at staff shortages for a 50% backlog reduction in 6 weeks. So what do we need to do to sort out our issues with our incident backlog? How many staff do we need now? Currently that's 2 spare. Okay, so with the key indicators, these are which of your KPIs are performing best and which are the worst ones. So this is automatically populated with those each day. So we can see at a glance which areas you need to look at in order to make improvements. So on the highest negative performance, the worst performing KPI, you can see is changes being closed before planned end date and what the percentage is. And again, we've got the same functions available to us to extract the information around that. So the amount of tabs available to us, you can have as many as you like on each one of these dashboards, and if you run over the limit, then you've got all tabs. So we can have a look at lost production, which is now on here. This gives us some figures around what the actual time is we've lost, production days we've lost, and then we can associate costs with that. So this is running from year on, so it's a cumulative sum month to date running across and reset each month. So we can see the total cost per month of production days for January has reached $635,000. So we can see how that's calculated by looking at the formula. So the formula in this case is, well, how many number of production days have been lost, and that's been calculated from the values contained within ServiceNow, multiplied by 8, 30 days, 8 hours, and then we've got a cost of each employee that's been calculated at $45. That's how we've come up with the real value, the real cost in this example. Okay, so just looking at start and key, this is which indicators are most important to the business, the ones that you're working on now. So some of these might change from month to month. So if you, essentially it's performed within scorecards, and you'll notice a star on here, that's basically making it a favorite. Once that's been selected, then that will appear in any relevant scorecards across the dashboards. So on the start and key dashboard, just go back into that. These indicators, these KPIs, these are the ones that are close. These are the ones that we need to look at and resolve right now. They're the ones that I'm most interested in. They'll appear on this list, and you can chop and change those as you appear, as you want. Again, we've got key indicators as well. This is another selection. So these would be the ones that are most important to the business rather than the ones that perhaps a localized manager is interested in. And we have breakdowns by assignment groups. On that subject, I'll just quickly show and demonstrate the assignment group dashboard. So this dashboard has been built with some key metrics, key measurements and dashboards, and it pertains to, in this case, the assignment group. So these figures are associated with configuration management assignment group. So we can see that that particular team is responsible for 3.86 days out of that target that we looked at, that value we looked at earlier. On the drop down, then this gives us all the other teams that are available, all the other assignment groups. So let's have a look at network. So now we've got the same set of measures and dashboard display, but now it's pertaining to the network assignment group. I've always found this a particularly powerful dashboard to use, because it takes fairly minimal effort to set this up, but maximum value to look at the measurements and the values that are most important and across assignment groups. And lastly, I was just going to have a look at other portlets that are available. We can, in each dashboard environment, you can have up to 4 columns, so that's 4 portlets. You can also stretch a chart over multiple columns. We can just scroll that across. Yep. So a stacked bar, which is quite useful. I've shown some breakdown information, pie charts, all standard chart types that you would expect. Not shown on here, but you can also very easily demonstrate the performance over the open instance, for example, over the last 5 years. So you can overlay the previous year's performance with the current year. And finally, all of these are available on mobile devices. So we have an iPhone setup, and an iPad is also available, where we can look at each of the indicators that are associated with your login user. So really, that's a broad overview of what performance analytics looks like and how it's integrated within the ServiceNow desktop